Hey, what's up everybody? So, Season 1 has come to a close. A couple weeks ago, we got the final re-release of Season 1 with the finale, and I have some thoughts. All positive thoughts, mind you. Maybe it's just recency bias, but I genuinely think this is the best release we've had in ages. Certainly since before Icebrood Saga, which was like 2 years ago. I know I'm a little late on this because I had COVID. That was not fun. Don't recommend that. So anyway, as usual, I thought I'd just spell out my thoughts on the recent release. Again, all this content was a first for me. I wasn't actually around for any of this stuff when it first launched. I'll talk a bit about what I thought of the story, the new activities, but especially the rewards I'm very excited to dive into. But first, you ever wanted something that you could just pick up and put down while waiting on that fish to bite, for that world boss to spawn, for your tank to feed their cat? Well, good news, folks. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. If you like raiding, dungeons, PvP, solo campaigns, and you want to do all of that from the comfort of your mobile phone, then you can use my QR code or the links below to download Raid yourself on mobile and PC. But take a look at some of these characters, right? This is my man, Jintoro. His third skill, Oni's Rage, hits like a truck. The fourth time you use this skill, it hits a whopping 5 times in one blow. That's nuts. But to do that, I gotta keep my boy in play. So Skyle of the Drakes here brings regular healing with a revive in her back pocket that'll also buff the revived ally. Really love some of these character synergies. There's heaps of interesting ways to build your team. I'm a sucker for buildcraft, so if you're into that, then you'll have an absolute field day here. Now this is a big month for Raid. There's a new season of the Forge Pass for some easy gearing, and they've added a new faction called the Sylvan Watchers, full of elves, fays, druids, and more. I mean, look at how sick these guys look. God damn. Overall, an excellent time to get started. New players can use my QR code or the links below and grab this free starter pack, which includes the champion Vergis and all these extra goodies. Almost $30 of value right there. Not to mention, you can get even more exclusive rewards right now if you're an Amazon Prime member. You'll find these rewards in your inbox for the next 30 days only, so get in quick. And with that, let's get back to the video. So, the Season 1 finale. First of all, let's talk about the story. I'm not a huge story guy, as many of you will know, so with the exception of episode 5, I found the rest of season 1 to be a little bit of a drag. Encounters definitely showed their age. There were a few bits of like needless padding. The writing and quality of voice acting was kind of so-so. But regardless, I was just glad to see the narrative continuity restored here. The finale, by comparison, I really didn't mind as much. By this point, we already have an established villain in Scarlet. Her plans were in motion, and the stakes felt really high. Her overall tone in this episode was definitely a lot less hammed up, which I enjoyed. The writing overall definitely felt like a step up in quality, particularly with the introduction of Taimi. I know she gets, a mixed reception, but I've always really enjoyed Taimi. I think her dialogue comes across as quite natural, and I think a lot of that's to do with her voice work. It's no different here. She's genuinely, really funny and snarky. Her interactions with the rest of the crew were always a joy to watch.
My theory is that she knows something about the dragons, and that's why she's building an army.
Your theory, huh? You don't think she's just a big old meanie?
Do you always talk like a 4-year-old?
The missions themselves were cool too. It starts out with a pretty fantastic solo instance of the Twisted Marionette fight. I think it's a bit of a shame that you couldn't opt into doing the group version of this event to progress the step, at least not to my knowledge, because it's a really fun activity. And I'm always an advocate for pushing group content where possible. Regardless though, it was cool to see the rest of Dragon's Watch fighting alongside you, and I found the difficulty to be pretty good too. The instance definitely kicked my ass a couple times, but I found it a lot of fun and pretty manageable for the most part. The world versus world story step I thought was super interesting. You're not actually required to do anything here, but I think the fact that it took you to the edge of the mists for a story episode was a nice change of scenery. If you were feeling bold, you could take on the side mission and go to the center of the map to collect the parts that Taimi needed. Nobody was around, and I got slapped by the NPCs, which was a shame, but I thought it was a cool idea nonetheless. Skipping forward a bit, the escape from Lion's Arch. This instance was quite a highlight for me. You've got this massive drill in the distance, The fire going on, the skybox, it all felt very imposing. The stakes felt very real. It wasn't a particularly challenging instance, just a handful of escort type stuff, but I can imagine how impactful this would have felt back in the day, helping to evacuate the main player hub of all of its NPCs and whatnot. You really got that sense of relief once you exited that instance and got to the medical camp. I had some fun little interactions there. I love the robot. And that was a nice little moment of reprieve before you head back into the fray with the Battle of Lion's Arch. So, the Battle of Lion's Arch. This is the new 50-man activity, and unlike the Marionette, you are thrown into the public version of this. You can just dip in and out of the instance whenever you like, similar to the Tower of Nightmares. A somewhat basic event for the most part, with objectives just sort of scattered over Lion's Arch, but the final boss fight, or the fights rather, were a lot of fun. You obviously don't know this at the time, but this is all actually teaching you the basic mechanics of the new strike, which I'll get into in a second. It's just a really fun hop in and out event, and there's actually a whole new set of weapons attached to this, which is awesome. You can get 2 of these weapons for free from the achievements, and the rest are rare drops, but just that alone is enough to keep me coming back to this event, because the skins are really high quality, they look awesome, and there's already a few more that I've got my eye on that I'm wanting to collect. The final fight with Scarlet, it's kind of a shame that the battle for Lion's Arch didn't extend to this being the final boss as it was back in launch, but I get that it might have pushed the length of this event too long. You know, we've already got the previous boss fight against the 3 Watch Knights, and I get that maybe ArenaNet wanted this showdown to feel a little more intimate. The sort of like trichroma mechanic was interesting, where you had to pick up the different colors and mix them together before you could deal damage, or you had to pick up certain ones to kill the specific color aligned clone. I thought that was really interesting, and I was actually kind of surprised this didn't make its way into the strike, but maybe we'll see it return with the challenge mode version. Speaking of which, oh man, the old Lion's Court strike, let's talk about it. So this is the brand new strike that dropped with this episode. Now, I've only done it once, so maybe my opinion will change over time. Again, this might also just be recency bias, as we've been playing the same End of Dragon strikes for the last 3/4 of a year. But man, I think this might be my favorite strike. Really awesome mechanics, massive one-shot AoEs. You gotta manage multiple bosses simultaneously. There's a lot of damage pressure going on the whole time. I was just constantly blown away by the balls on ArenaNet to make this as challenging as it was. I really wasn't expecting it. I'd put it between like Kaineng Overlook and Harvest Temple. I think most of us were expecting something really easy, because this is technically the first strike new players unlock. But no, man, ArenaNet had like no chill here. I could really feel the Final Fantasy inspirations here. It was quite similar to a fight in Final Fantasy XIV E6S. 14 players, you know what I'm talking about. I especially love how this fight takes something players are familiar with, that being the breaking of Defiance bars, and allows us to use this in order to interact with the mechanic. Just like the Battle of Lion's Arch, each boss has their own form of massive one-shot area of effect attack, and breaking their Defiance during this will invert that shape. It feels like there's multiple different strategies you could use, like just using no CC at all initially and stacking in the safe zone, or CCing immediately so everyone can adjust straight away, etc. Eventually, it becomes total mayhem with like all 3 bosses in play at once, each asking you to be close or far away while their massive AoEs are overlapping each other, so you need to CC the right one to reveal the safe area, and oh man. Again, just really excellent encounter design here, and I applaud ArenaNet for being so bold. And this was the normal mode. The challenge mode drops on the 29th along with a massive balance patch, so I expect it'll be a doozy. Overall, feeling very optimistic about the future of instanced content, given what we've seen so far. It is a little odd that the game doesn't actually point you to the strike. Even experienced players I know weren't aware that there was a new strike, and I don't blame them. Unless you read the blogs and stuff, you probably wouldn't know, because there was very little fanfare. Given the difficulty though, maybe it wasn't ArenaNet's intention for new players to actually get stuck into this right away. This way, the more hardcore audience can seek out the challenge, while the new players stay ignorant of it and just continue on. That kind of makes sense to me, you know, I get it. And the new rewards as part of this strike were pretty decent too, so that's the last thing I want to touch on. The excellent rewards. ArenaNet really came out here and dropped the best shoulder/cape combo in the game, and it's not in the gem store. Seriously, these two pieces are awesome. Like, I've seen so many cool looks created with these. You can get these new shoulders and this cape from the episode's meta achievement located here. Very easy to do. For some, this probably isn't a big deal, but for someone like me, cool new fashion pieces are like the only motivation I need to play new content, and they understood the assignment. Speaking of which, there's 3 new weapons from the new strike. These are based on an older set, but they've got some cool new fancy VFX going on. Better yet, these can be recolored using a semi-secret Mystic Forge recipe. Very cool indeed. These look sweet as hell. Really want the hammer or the greatsword. These honestly look better than the weapons that were introduced for the challenge modes of the End of Dragons strikes. As previously mentioned as well, you've got the new Lion's Champion weapon set from the Battle of Lion's Arch. Again, everything I've just mentioned, these are all earnable in-game rewards, not gem store. You'd love to see it. Please keep it up, ArenaNet. Man, I would love to see this with the new season. But let's talk about Old Lion's Arch, baby. It's back. Yeah, so I'm still working towards getting the Lion's Memory Key or whatever it's called. I have zero nostalgia for this place. I honestly barely remember what it looked like, but it's cool that it's back. And now players have essentially a free alternative to the lounge passes that have become so popular. For those unaware, this key will send you back to Old Lion's Arch on double click, and you can use all the vendors and vanities and whatnot, and then double click again and it'll return you to exactly where you were before. Very handy indeed. You get this for doing all of the meta achievements for all episodes in Season 1. So, high-level thoughts. Pretty blown away by the amount of value ArenaNet has gotten out of restoring Season 1. For all intents and purposes, there's been no new content for season players since End of Dragons, but it sure didn't feel like it, what with the Steam launch and how much they've squeezed out of Season 1 and whatnot. I think they could push it further by just bumping up the rewards a little bit with the Twisted Marionette / Tower of Nightmares, just giving them a weekly bonus and making them a part of the weekly loop. But, that's neither here nor there. Overall, just really glad that Season 1 is back in the game, basically restored to its former glory. And we now have a complete playable story for new players to work through, which is great to see. The most exciting thing is that Season 1 is now over. I mean, just think about it. The next reveal or piece of content that we see will be totally brand new. It'll be Season 6, or whatever they want to call it. A new location, a new story, a completely new chapter for Guild Wars 2. Again, as much as I'm impressed with the way ArenaNet has managed this quote-unquote content drought, I think seasoned players by this point are really itching for something new. So it's incredibly tantalizing to know that it's all just on the horizon. Anyway, that's it from me. Let me know what you thought of the Season 1 finale or the season overall. Specifically, would love to know what you all think of the new strike. I know some feel it's too easy, but man, again, I just came away super impressed. Thanks for watching the video, folks. Subscribe for more Guild Wars 2 shenanigans. And as always, I'll catch you later.